right, welcome to another episode of Reptile Fight Club. I am your host, Justin Julander, and with me is, well, lately not as always, but today, as always, is Mr. Chuck Poland. Welcome back.
Thank you, man. Yeah, it's good to be back.
You survived. They didn't kill you, huh?
Barely. Oh, dude, it's not over yet. So, yeah, it's the inspectors are on the base. They just went through and tore up the F-18 program yesterday, and they started into components. I guess they found some uncontrolled tech data right there on the floor. There goes.
Boy.
Yep, there goes our Central Technical Publications Library program. So, good times. We are still scratching and fetching, but all those hours hopefully paid off. We'll see. I'm over it. So looking to get back.
What happens will happen.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I've done the work, and now it's just time to see how it goes. So
I'm glad you're back.
Yeah, man. Yeah, a lot happened since I feel like you had like the episode of all episodes I missed. That was crazy.
Yeah,
huh?
You missed a good one. That was, yeah. But it's good to have you back. I'm sure everybody's sick of hearing them from me. So it'll be good to get the Chuck back in here. Come
now.
Well, anything going on in your world, in the reptile sphere?
Yeah, no, just
overrun by geckos yet?
Yes, overrun by geckos, and trying not to strangle some coastal carpets that are giving me a hard time. They don't want to feed, and I tried to start assist feeding them, and they were just like resisting the assist feed, and it was just like, okay, I'm over it. I'm over it. I'm not gonna try to force this. I just have been trying to throw live at him and see, but about 6 of them are real stubborn out of the 15. So I don't know, man. We'll just see. Yeah. I'm in my old age, I feel like I'm gonna do less of that, helping the stuff that makes life hard along, and just see who wants to carry on their genes and who doesn't.
Yeah, it's frustrating. I get that for sure. I just started with the carpets, so most of the jungles fed pretty well on their first try, and I just have, I think, one standout that's out of the. No, I think that one actually took, but. So yeah, things are going good with the jungles. The inlands, about half of them took on their first try. So that's I'm off to a good start. I guess
that is a good start.
They like the new room maybe or something. I don't know. So this is the first time I've had carpets in the new room. So, nice. And then I've got Brettles just about ready to clutch. The eggs are sinking in a bit, so I'll have some hypo Brettles here hatching. Cool. So. Not sure where I'm going to put them, but they're coming.
Oh yeah!
I didn't expect her to go this year, but yeah, she took. So
surprise!
Yeah, they all good eggs and all look like they've gone the distance. So we'll see what hatches out of them.
You're going to have the problem of the Mackenwookie.
Yeah, I'll figure something out. I've got a show this weekend, so hopefully I can move some animals and free up some space.
Where, in Salt Lake or?
Yeah, Salt Lake.
Was that what show is that?
Reptilian Nation. So it's a kind of a newer show, and they're coming in and having their show earlier than the other show that's in Utah. And so I know the other show is the Wasatch Reptile Expo, and they've been doing this for a long time. So
man, that's crazy. So it's like Battle of the Reptile Show on Sunday.
Yep.
That's nice.
Yep.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's. So we'll see how it goes, but yeah, it should be fun. It's always good to see the local vendors and breeders and stuff around here. They're good people, so
cool.
Good stuff. Yeah,
nice.
But I just looked in the incubator, and there's a little baby Nephurus wheeler eye, a little banded knobtail gecko in there. So
that's cool.
Yeah, second one of those.
Second one. Yeah.
Yeah, and hopefully a third one's on its heels. The first clutch only one egg hatched, and then this one they look good, but I only see one out. So hopefully the other one comes out soon. But.
Are you just holding on to those, or?
I don't know. I'm kind of torn, but yeah, I'll probably see how they do. But this one's got kind of a reduced pattern. It's got 5 bands like a Cinctus, but it's a wheeler eye, so
that's
kind of weird. Yeah,
interesting.
Well, aberrant stuff going on already here. So
yeah,
yeah, but yeah, everybody's doing pretty well. Family's family's doing good. So
nice. I liked Heidi's outro. That was
yeah.
She did a good job. If anybody didn't check out the Chuckless and RFCville episode, Heidi did the diligent duty of the outro and did a great job. So way to go, Heidi. Way to go.
Yeah, she's a great girl.
Yeah, she's good.
I might be a little biased, but yeah.
Versatile.
All right. Well, tonight we are joined by a special guest, Lisa Farinha. Am I pronouncing your last name correctly?
Yes,
is that right?
That's right.
Okay.
Lisa Farinha.
All right. Well, thank you for being on the show tonight. Lisa wrote in with a nice idea for the podcast, so we said, "Hey, come on and debate it. Come on and fight it." So she was maybe a little reluctant, but we're happy she agreed to do that. So we'll have a good discussion tonight. So why don't you introduce yourself? Kind of tell us where you fit in herpetoculture and some stuff that's going on for you lately.
Well, I got my first snake in 2016. So I haven't been doing this for very long. I consider myself a novice.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm jumping in the deep end, trying to fight someone like Justin Julander.
Oh, no.
But I'm still learning, and I think that tonight I look at it as less as a fight with you and more as just like training with my coach.
Oh, God. Well, I mean, for somebody that's new, you've done some really amazing things so far. So I wouldn't, discount your point of view. Yeah, we like the fresh look at things. Yeah, sometimes we get set in our ways and we have maybe not the best ideas. So it's always good to look at it with fresh eyes. So, yeah.
Yeah, I've been thinking about how in the hobby there's a real trend. Like when I first got my snake and I started listening to podcasts and doing research online, and there's been a real push to lower the temperatures, but not have as much of a varied temp. Like we aren't stressing our snakes. We don't want to stress our snakes anymore. And I just thought, well, what were we doing before? And I don't know what pushed the hobby to do that. So I was like interested to hear about that. So I thought maybe you and Chuck could fight about it, and lo and behold, here I am. So what's going on with me is I just got eggs for the second year in a row with my from my southern white-lipped python. Wow. I wasn't gonna do it because I've seen some things go wrong when you breed your snake back to back. But I talked to a few people that I trust, and they just said, do what you did last year, and if she wants to go, she'll go. So I pretty much just tried to do exactly what I did, and it worked. And
nice.
I was like, one of the things I'm excited about one of the reasons why I'm excited to be here and talking to you guys is because I noticed something kind of unusual is both times when she laid her eggs, she didn't mound them, and she just kind of laid them flat, almost like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. They weren't mounded in a ball, and I was just curious if that could mean that maybe since I keep my enclosure a little warmer maybe than other people, she didn't feel like she needed to keep them in a tight mass to keep them warmer. Or the one thing that I did notice is that I had problems with desiccation, and the eggs got pretty flat. And I know that I've read that one of the reasons why snakes brood their eggs is to keep humidity in, and I don't know if it's just that I didn't offer her the right nest box, or if it really meant something that she was just trying to keep them cooler. She did wrap them, but she wasn't able to totally beehive them. She just wrapped her tail around them and kind of laid on top of them.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, there is some precedent for that with, there was some research done on water pythons up in the Northern Territory where they lay their eggs in monitor burrows, and a lot of times the temperatures are good enough just to incubate the eggs on their own, and so they'll just leave them and let the clutch finish out. I think they kind of start, wrapped around the eggs, and if the temperatures are stable, then they take off and get an earlier start on, regaining their fat reserves and things like that. So, yeah, it's possible that could be due to temperature. So, yeah, that could be an interesting topic for the discussion today. So, yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So 2 years in a row with the Southern White Lips. I'm sure you're making the Mackenwookie a little jealous there.
Mm-hmm. So. I was just going to say that's
that's pretty cool. Yeah, I really enjoyed your interview on Morelia Pythons Radio. So if you guys haven't heard Lisa's interview, you got to check that out, because I really liked your enthusiasm, and it's just fun. It's almost infectious, where you can just really pick up how excited you are and how much fun you're having with this whole thing. So that's awesome.
Well, it worked out. She's totally fine. She's had 2 meals, and she wants more, and all the eggs were good. They were smaller. They're smaller eggs, though. I noticed that. I didn't weigh them, but they're just, you can just look at them and tell that they're smaller. There's more of them, but they're smaller.
Yeah.
I did, when I was feeding her, I did supplement it and put a little calcium D3 on her rats. Just not on all of them, just a few of them I did, because I was worried about that.
Yeah. I mean, successive years of reproduction can take a little bit of a toll on it, especially some of the larger pythons, and I mean even the smaller pythons. I know in the wild the green tree pythons only go every maybe 3rd or 4th year, but in captivity we can give them kind of almost unlimited resources. They probably eat a lot more in captivity than they do in the wild. But yeah, so how often do you what do you do, like food cycling or temperature cycling? What do you do for your
That's what I did. I did total food cycling, nothing to do with the temperatures. Both times she went in the middle of summer, so my room gets really warm in the summer. Every day the ambients get up into the upper 80s, and then they drop back down into the upper 70s at night. And then the winter time, it's similar but lower, like the mid 80s to the mid 70s. But both times she went in the middle of summer, in the middle of the heat wave. They were, when they were breeding, they were mostly on the cool side of the enclosure the whole time. And that's the other cool thing about doing it back to back. The first year you're totally like second guessing yourself, telling yourself you're just imagining. You're like, I'm just seeing what I want to see. I'm projecting what I want. And then so the next year you can be like, okay, this is she's doing the same thing she did, and you feel confident. So you can see the different behaviors. Keith had asked me to check to see if I saw any blood scenting, like he noticed some blood marking from the female of the Bullens. I didn't notice anything like that. I just started feeding in the spring after having a long fast through the winter, and by mid-April I started pairing, and at first they weren't into each other at all. I would come in the morning and the enclosure would just be covered in urates, like they were wrestling and smearing urates everywhere. And the male would be totally pristine, but Pearl, the female, she would be covered in urates too. So I think maybe he was just chasing her around, peeing on her or something. I don't know. But I was like wiping down the walls.
That sounds fun.
Yeah, it was fun. It was exciting. And then probably about a week and a half of that, they started breeding, and they just kept breeding the whole time, almost all the way until she ovulated. And I did notice something different. This time the male was guarding her. He's a really placid snake usually. He doesn't strike, or he does hiss, but he doesn't strike or anything. But he was like laying on top of her, and anytime I would try to get into the cage, he would strike out at me. I don't know if they were bluff strikes, but it was unusual. It was new behavior, so it was pretty neat because it was obvious that he was guarding her. And since they aren't known to do male combat, I wonder if that's what they do instead, is just get with the female and then guard her, rather than, this is the male that like stays with her until she ovulates.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. So do the males typically stay smaller than the females in this species?
Daniel Natusch says he never noticed anything like that in the white-lipped pythons. They're very similar in size. Okay.
But no scars and things like that on the males from obvious combat bouts or anything like that?
I don't think so, because everything I've read has been that they aren't known for male combat.
Yeah. That's cool. Yeah, I don't know. You're reading the Shine book right now, aren't you?
Oh, yes. I'm enjoying it so much.
Isn't it a great book?
Yeah, I was a little frustrated because I was like, I need to do some research on these temperatures, and I was like, I really just want to read that other book.
Yeah, it gets you. It kind of sucks you in and gets you wanting to read it all the time. Yeah, I'm a little further than halfway. So I had. Well, I didn't have to, but I took my two youngest daughters school shopping last weekend, and so while they were trying on clothes and looking for clothes, I was reading the book and sitting around in the clothes shop. So yeah, I got a little bit more reading done this week. You're
like, I'm gonna try this shirt on. I need to use that booth over there. See you in 15 minutes.
You've been in there for an hour, sir. Come out. Yep. Yeah, it's a fun one. I'd recommend that to anybody that's interested in science of snakes and that kind of thing. But he just tells some great stories and kind of puts his learning process in there over the years. So it's really entertaining read for sure. So
yeah, he seems like a really humble guy too.
Yeah. He admits his failures and successes, in the same token. So it's really cool. I'm excited to finish it out, but there's some cool ties in there. So he did his postdoc in Utah down in Lake Salt Lake area. So I'm like, that's really cool.
I thought about you. Yeah, when I read that part, I was like, I bet Justin is getting a kick out of this. He's not only talking about that, and he's talking about St. George, and I've heard you bring up St. George more than a few times.
Yeah, it's a great spot, and I'm pretty sure I know what spot he's talking about when he talks about looking for Gila monsters and stuff. So yeah, cool stuff. And then the guy that kind of got him into helped him get in at the postdoc in Utah was Dr. Legler, and he was a guy that I'd met in high school, so I was really excited to hear that too.
Really cool.
Yeah, really cool guy. Had some amazing stories about looking for turtles and stuff in Australia, so just had me enthralled. I'm like, this is what I want to do. So, but I failed him. I wimped out and went into virology instead of herpetology. So
now you're reading about what you could have been in the men's dressing room while your daughters are school shopping.
Exactly. Yeah. Have you gotten to the part where he gets stuck on the cliff, where he's like sliding off?
I'm pretty much right at the part when he's gonna just start talking about oh no, I did read that part, and he was in the really bad accident with his girlfriend. That one.
No, he was flipping rocks on this kind of slippery slope, and he got too close to the edge, and he started to slide off the edge, and he kind of grabbed on, and his belt buckle stopped him from sliding, and he was like, there was a cliff below him, he says it felt like 100 feet, but it was probably more like 50 feet, but still, you know,
Still.
50 or 100, you're going to get hurt. So he's like grabbing on and clawing to the rock and trying to get himself up and yelling to the people that were with him to come help him. And I think they just kind of laughed at him, but he eventually got back up and kept flipping rocks. But he said he found a lot of good snakes that day, so maybe it was worth it. But yeah, he came close to having a bad accident that way too. But yeah, great book, but I'm really enjoying it. Yeah. Well, let's see. We're going to talk about temperatures today. So, as Lisa mentioned, she's been kind of thinking about that and different temperature regimes that are used in herpetoculture. So, we're going to kind of talk about the, I guess, pros and cons or benefits and drawbacks of having kind of a steady state, you know, like higher temp, just kind of not really varying your temps much, and then more varied or I guess maybe natural ups and downs and things like that. So let's get into it. So first off, we'll have Chuck and myself flip to see who gets to debate you. So Chuck, you want to give it a call?
That's tails.
It is tails. You got it. So, you want to debate Lisa? Or would you like me to?
I will let you. I will let you do it.
You'll let me? I told you, man. The people are sick of hearing from me, but I'll go for it.
That's not true.
All right.
I'm back, but I'm still going to have a free ride.
Okay, sounds good. You'll moderate for us.
That's right.
All right, Lisa, go ahead and call it and see what you can pick your side. All right, you got it. I'm a double loser today.
Two-time loser.
Hang my head in shame. All right, well, what side would you like to defend?
I will defend a varied thermal temperature regimen with highs and lows, with, you know, more extreme highs and lows.
Okay, sounds good. And we... Mm-hmm.
I'll just go ahead and go, I guess.
Okay, all right.
Oh, she knows the deal.
Yeah. I like it.
It's like, I'll just start. It's fine.
Yeah, she's coming in prepared, so that's good.
Well, kind of like how you insinuated earlier, you called it a more natural regime. So that's kind of the angle I'm going to take is... even though it's probably harder and more of an expert like level way to go, it is probably more natural because snakes in the wild aren't always just going to find the most perfect temperature that they want to be. Sometimes they're going to get a little hotter or a little cooler. And sometimes it actually might be good for them to get a little hotter or cooler than that steady 84, 82. There might be things that are beneficial. And we're just mainly talking about pythons, right?
Sure. Yeah, that works. We all like pythons, so yeah, we can kind of center it around pythons.
So I was thinking about, because I read your green tree python book, and you strongly recommend a more moderate temperature regime in there for them because there's a lot of overheating, dehydration problems. And what I was thinking about is the baby pythons, when they hatch out, they haven't found a lot of nests in the wild, but when they do, they're usually on the edge of the forest where the more sun comes in, so that way the mother can thermoregulate, keep the eggs warm, and then when the babies hatch, that's where they stay because they feed mostly on skinks. So I was thinking maybe the baby pythons sitting in the dappled sun, they're probably getting a lot warmer than the adults would. They might get warmer, and they'll get warm faster also, and then cool off faster.
Yeah.
So maybe we were just keeping the little baby green tree pythons too cold, so they aren't getting like stimulated in the morning to feed until hunt. So That's what I was thinking anyways. I don't know if it's much of an argument.
No, that's a good start. I agree that, giving animals access to, a variety of temperatures. So, of course I like your side as well, but I'm here to defend the, kind of that, steady
toe the
state
line.
regimen. Exactly. I can't be agreeing with you. No, I'm just kidding. As anybody who's listened to this has figured out, it's more Reptile Kumbaya than Reptile Fight Club. So, but we won't tell them. We like to keep that hard,
Well, I want you to bring it because
all right.
I really want to know why everyone's so against these high temperatures when I've seen anecdotal evidence that maybe they like it and they actually do seek it.
Well, and I think that's kind of where, I in reading the Shine book, he was talking about, and this was, not necessarily pythons, but I know that some pythons utilize this strategy, but they'll go under rocks, right? They kind of shelter under rock, so rock on rock, and they'll be underneath the rock, and that'll give them kind of almost a perfect, ideal place where they can hit the temperatures they need to hit, right? So it'll get really hot on top of the rock, so if they need more heat, they just press their body up to the rock, and when it gets too warm, they kind of hunker down and stay by the cool bedrock that doesn't heat up as quickly. So this thin rock above them can kind of let them get to that steady state temperature that they need to do the job they need to do. Now, I'm not arguing that they don't need cold sometimes and heat other times, but I think for the most part, most of their activity, and this is kind of along the thinking lines of Terry Phillip maybe, but where most of their duties can be done at kind of a stable 82 degrees. They can do all the things they need to do. And so that's kind of the median, I guess you'd say. So, yeah, they can use higher temperatures and they can use lower temperatures, but that steady state kind of works for them. And then if you saw Eric and Owen's show last night, I got to watch it on my ride home on the bus last night, but they talked about Timorensis, Malayo python timorensis, the lesser Sudanese or Sudan python, is they said a couple times, but the lesser Sunda python, which also called the Timor python, but they don't occur on the island of Timor, so it's kind of a misnomer. But they showed temperature graphs, and similar with the green tree pythons. Like when I was in the forest in the Iron Range, it was not hot. It was, a nice, even kind of 75, 80 degrees. It was pretty cool. And I looked at lots of different temperature graphs, and a lot of those, especially tropical pythons, especially if they're living in forests or whatever, they only get about 75 to 80 degrees. They stay in that kind of 5-degree increments. So I think especially for pythons that come from those areas, that stable temperature is probably what they're evolved to be kept at, So, yeah, I guess I could counter with that. So, I think a lot of them are designed to be in that kind of sweet spot of 75 to 82 or something like that. And mostly kind of hang out at 80 or
I don't
so.
think that there's any argument that both those kind of steady climate equatorial pythons and then the more southern ranging, which experience higher or lower temperatures, don't experience fluctuations in temperatures. You're just talking about a spread that's much different, stuff that's less, more towards the hemispheres experiences a much greater swing than things that tend to stay more equatorial, maybe get less
more
swing,
stable,
right?
Yeah, and those species that are more equatorial, the temperatures become less of a powerful stimulant for things like reproduction or feeding cycles and things. Then it becomes more about rainfall, moisture and things like that. So at least for those things that are kind of equatorial, it's not as big of a deal, to keep them at kind of that steady state.
I've heard that the green tree pythons, when they're harder to find in the dry season, people will say, oh, they're rare because they go up there in the dry season when it's easier to get up there. And it's because they're all hiding up in the tops of the trees where it might be a little hotter up there. But yeah, what I think is that like 82, 84 is the like homeostasis, but during the day their temperatures could elevate and drop down, but 84 would still be their median temperature, or 88. Because I've noticed that I've been keeping my green tree pythons in my bathroom just with ambient temperature, and pretty much keeping them in that low 80 range. And I have some wild caughts that I got from Dan Mallory, and they'll be eating just fine, and then they'll just stop eating. And these are adults. I got them when they're adults, and they're adults. So what I did after them not eating for about a month and a half, I took him and put him in my snake room, which is a lot warmer, and put him up on top of one of the enclosures and let him sit in there for about a week, and then offered him a rat, and he ate it. So I mean, this is anecdotal, but so he ate the rat, and then I just moved him back into the bathroom, and he was fine. But then he did it again, and I just did the same thing, and it happened again. So I don't know what's going on there. And then there's also, just recently I moved all of them into my snake room. So now they're feeling like the hot summers and the cooler winters. So we're going to see what's happening, because I'm trying to breed one. I got a green tree python from Lucas, and she looked like she was going to go, and then she just didn't go at all. And I was kind of thinking maybe she didn't go because she didn't feel like she had enough heat available to her to keep the eggs warm enough in that room. And we'll see what happens. Right now she's looking pretty big, so my fingers are crossed, but I'm not holding my breath. So there's that. And then so 3 of the enclosures that I have set up for them have lights with plants, and because of the lights, I don't have the lights come on for very long, because they get the enclosures really, really warm. And one of the snakes with the lights, when I first put him in there for the first 2 weeks, he kept perching right under the light, and I would temp him, and he would be 92 degrees. And so what I did was I moved, so the plant was kind of next to the light, and I thought maybe he was interested in the plant, and so I moved the plant over, and now he's staying next to the plant. So I think he wanted the plant more than the heat of the light, but the 92 degrees wasn't bothering him. It was bothering me more than it was bothering him.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you guys listen to the Colubrids and Colubroid podcast, but they had a guest on there, Jennifer Joseph. She has a lot of experience breeding Pituophis, and she has a bunch of import giant hognose, or the hognose snakes from Madagascar, and she was dealing with a parasite that they had, an amoeba. Do you know what that is? I'm sure you know what that is, Justin, because
they're
know about stuff
fun.
like that.
Yeah.
But she was talking about doing research on that particular parasite, and they found out that they don't do as well with low temperatures, like under 50, or higher temperatures over 90, and it wouldn't kill it, but it would definitely stifle it, make it so that the snake, maybe its immune system and the medicine can do its job. So when they cooled it that winter, she said it really helped the snakes. So I wonder if the same token could be said about pythons that do things like we're always talking about microclimates and that, snakes, even though the air temperature says 88 degrees, it doesn't mean the snake is getting 88 degrees. And I would argue that some of those microclimates those snakes are seeking out actually might be higher than 88 degrees, because they talk about finding snakes inside compost piles. And if it's the same thing that I'm thinking of that's in my garden, compost piles get extremely hot. And so do garbage piles, and so do raft attics with raft snakes that live up in their rafters. I saw a video of a guy that was a snake catcher in Australia, and he went up in these people's attic, and they had snake sheds and snake poop all over this attic. So the snakes must have been living in that attic, and I don't know how hot they were getting in there, but it must have been a lot hotter than the air temperature.
Now they say like in every third house in Darwin, there's a Darwin carpet python up in there. So they commonly use attics. And, right. and I agree. You know, I think snakes, when they need to do different jobs, they probably need to select different temperatures. Now, I imagine it's probably more dramatic with temperate species and they tend to be a little tougher because they can handle a much wider range of temperatures and they're used to kind of those fluctuations in temperature. So, but I think overall, like a lot of their behavior is to try to get them to a temperature that they need. So they'll actively thermoregulate to reach that desired temperature. Sometimes it's higher for things like feeding, or digestion or reproduction. They need to increase their temperatures if they've got eggs or if they've got a meal. Whereas other times they might need lower temperatures, and so they'll actively, kind of get their target temperature and sit at that temperature for the time they need. So when they're sick, they might elevate their temperature or perhaps lower it. It's hard to say. So, I've always kind of been a proponent of giving them, higher and lower than they need, so then they can kind of choose where they go. But to some degree, they're especially in the wild, they're actively moving to different places so they can maintain that kind of constant temperature, if that makes sense. So even though the area around them is fluctuating wildly, they're seeking a place where they can hit the preferred body temperature. So with diamond pythons, they showed they come out in the morning and bask on the rocks where it gets hot fast, and they're darker, so they probably heat up pretty quickly. And then as they hit that preferred body temperature, they go into kind of the dappled sunlight to maintain that temperature without overheating or underheating. And then at night they'll cool, they'll coil up so they can retain, that have a smaller surface area so they can retain that heat. Or if they're too hot, they can stretch out and move around and dissipate the heat. So, but I guess overall they're trying to hit that kind of level, constant preferred body temperature.
So what you're basically saying is that even though the environment may be peaks and valleys of temperature and things that aren't stable, if you would look at what they're doing, they're trying to, kind of linear graph that peak and that valley to try to stay within a much tighter range of thermal.
Exactly. And they have done studies on that where they've tracked the temperature of the snake and compared it with the environment, even with reproductive females. Like that's how we discovered what they're doing when they're shivering on their eggs. They're raising that body temperature. So, they're kind of facultative endotherms at that time when they're using their body's energy to generate heat and to keep those eggs warm when they might dip down a little too cold. So, but those are only seen in kind of the more temperate animals that experience those wider fluctuations, so they have to do things to stay in that sweet spot.
Facultative endotherms.
I think that's what you call it when they they shiver. Is that a big enough word?
That's a good word. Yeah, that was well done. Well done. That was your big word for the day.
I guess even though they have those wild fluctuations, they try to maintain kind of that homeostasis or that flat line.
But I mean, at the same time,
to average out.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. But I mean, to your point, like my coastals really didn't do a whole lot indoors when my temperatures are fairly stable, and the minute I put them outside and they really hit that real cool, that cool winter and that warm summer, boom, they just great looking clutch, big clutch of eggs, like just like that. So I mean, clearly, I think that I think there's those extreme swings are something the snake needs to manage. Maybe it gives them some benefit on the margins, being able to heat up quicker or to cool down when they need to, but it's definitely unarguably a signal for them, and their body gets very clear signals from those like very, very obvious differences in temperature seasonally, to me anyway, where they say, I know exactly where I am as the sun, or as we're changing the solar position throughout the year. Got it. I know where I'm at. What I mean?
Are those, like you were saying, Justin, those temperate species, because they have such high valleys and low valleys and high peaks, after they've been down in that valley and it starts to warm up, their body says, go now, because they don't have the whole season to wait to lay their eggs so that they'll be survive. Because if they lay them too late, maybe the temperatures will drop too much for them to be able to keep them warm enough. So,
I think that's why a lot of those species, the more temperate species, you tend to have a higher incidence of live birth versus egg laying, because it's the female can control it better if she can move and shuttle and go to different areas to warm up more. So that's kind of how those kind of things evolve and develop, because it just makes more sense to be able to retain the eggs and move around with the offspring in the female to keep them at that desired range. But I mean, obviously, they need different temperatures at different times, and that's one of the benefits of ectothermy, is that you don't burn a lot of energy when you maintain your body at a lower temperature. I mean, if we drop 3 or 4 degrees or raise 3 or 4 degrees, we're in serious trouble. You got a fever of 4 or 5 degrees higher than your normal body temperature, and you're headed to the hospital. So with them, they can fluctuate their body temperatures quite a bit. So obviously, you've got a very strong argument in that regard for having that access to a wide variety of temperatures. And I'm not suggesting that they necessarily need that 80 degrees all year round, but when they do need 80 degrees, they'll do the things to get them to 80 degrees, either go to shade or go to sun, to move up and down to where they hit that sweet spot.
Or loosen their coil when they're just
with the eggs.
Or even just when they're trying to conserve, like if they're hiding out in the shade after warming up, but then the day is just too hot, can't they? Doesn't a tightly coiled snake preserve their heat a lot longer than a sprawled out snake? So that's how you know when you go into your reptile room and all your snakes are just like sprawled out. It's like when you see the crows on a really hot day and they're like standing around with their wings open, they're trying to cool off.
Or they seek the water or something to kind of really cool down. Then it's really hot out.
One argument that I did have for the for more of a steady thermal was that if you're a snake breeder and you're going to sell a snake to a new keeper, it's a lot easier to tell them a really narrow regime that that the snake will survive in, and it's easier for them to understand and get it done, rather than telling them, well, at this time of the year you need to let it drop down this low, and then because that's just too much to tell a new keeper. And that's what I did with my green tree pythons. Harlan Wall, I bought a snake from him, and he told me what to do, and I did exactly what he said, and it worked. I had great success. I haven't lost one. So
Nice. Yeah, he's a good person to listen to.
Level.
Yeah, I was going to say.
He taught me a lot.
Probably not steering you wrong.
Yeah,
he taught me a lot. I sent him, he told me what to do, and then I sent him a picture I said, okay, I did it, and I sent a picture, and he's all, oh my God, you did exactly what I told you. Like, no one ever does that.
yeah, right. And, I mean, it might vary from place to place. If you're doing what somebody's doing, say in Florida, and you're out in the desert like me in Utah, the high deserts where it gets really cold and really hot, and then the humidity's about 10 to 20%, versus Florida where it's very warm and very humid. You might have to alter those recommendations. And I think when Terry Phillip was on Morelia Python Radio, I think where his situation is, where he's working with a wide variety of species from a varied climates and places on Earth where they're coming from, so they have a wide variety of needs. So he's trying to shoot for the least common denominator, trying to keep as many species as possible at the same kind of thermal regimen that they can all benefit from. Maybe not necessarily.
Again, it's about the goal, right? It's about the
exactly.
Goal, right?
His goal is to keep the most diverse, collection of reptiles happy, and that's very difficult. When you're trying to keep a lot of things in kind of a limited, thermal or regulated area. So,
and I think it's good because you really can talk about both sides of this argument, kind of under the Terry Phillip umbrella, and the idea of a varied, varied thermal regime, as snakes have a preferred body temperature, as kind of Justin was alluding to, that they'll use those peaks and valleys to kind of stay within that temperature, and that's a safe place for you to put that snake and keep it there. And for new keepers, it's nice and safe, but maybe not the most effective way to breed a snake, or if you want to reproduce snakes, that then you have to kind of look at all those other factors that go into them making behavioral decisions. And clearly, I'm not to say that you can't do that. I think I had pretty good success with that flat temp steady state with the Tracier. So, again, it's the situation that you're talking about. It really is situational.
And I think, especially for like if you're trying to breed animals and like if you're a commercial breeder, a lot of them tend to specialize in one or two species that have very similar requirements, and then they kind of balance everything around that. So if you're a colubrid keeper, you keep a lot, North American colubrids, you're going to have that very cold winter. You're going to stick them all in a cold room for, a few months, and then warm them up and do the whole thing. But if you're a ball python breeder, you probably have a pretty steady, fairly high, temperature compared to what you might use for other python species that are more temperate. But I was really interested to see Dave Kaufman's movie on that he filmed in Africa about ball pythons. I thought that was really interesting, and I do like his series of showing animals in the wild and kind of measuring temperatures where they're at and in their burrows and looking at humidity and things. And I mean those ball pythons on eggs in burrows, that was pretty warm in there, so, and very humid. So
and
they're seeking those areas.
Look at Owen now. He can breed colubrids like a maniac, but he can't breed a carpet to save his life anymore, right? Like
the rhythm of the room. His rhythm of the room is around colubrids now.
Yeah, he switched up his mojo.
Although he did get his white lip eggs this year, he changed it up. So maybe the white lips are more like a colubrid in their needs. I don't know, but it's definitely little differences in where the animals come from. I think I kind of like to specialize in Australian animals that kind of have very similar requirements. There's a little bit of variation there, but for the most part, they're all pretty tough and have a fairly varied requirements. So,
what about when you're incubating your eggs, because when I got the white lip eggs, this is probably, I think I mentioned it in the NPR episode, but when I first got them, I thought, oh, I'm going to try something different. And after reading, because I the carpet python book, when you guys did the put the temperature recorder in the python clutches, and you saw how the eggs just went up and down. They weren't like at a steady temp, and they were reaching temperatures of into the 90s at a few points. And so I thought, well, I'm going to do a varied temperature, where at night I was going to let the temperature drop down like a couple degrees and then back up. I think I was doing 87 at night, 89 during the day, because what happened was I asked one person and they told me, oh, incubate them at 87, then someone else told me incubate them at 89. So I thought, oh, I'm just going to combine the two. And then I told Ryan Young, and he's like, why would you do that? Don't do that. And he was absolutely right, because I was getting so much condensation in the egg box. So it was creating a problem. But I just thought, well, if it happens when the mother incubates, because it wasn't in the wild, so we can't really say for sure that it happens if that's what would have happened in the wild situation. But I just thought it was cool, and I just thought I would try it. And then, but I'm not trying that this time. I'm just trying to stay at a steady 88.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of part of the difficulty of providing a very thermal regimen is you need much larger enclosures, and you need maybe much larger incubation boxes or something, because in the wild they have that almost unlimited area where they can go, and they have unlimited temperatures that they can seek. They can hit 150 if they want in the sun, or go into the shade and get down into the 70s, or go deep into a crevice and get down into the 60s or lower. So they have those options, and to try to replicate that in captivity is very difficult. And so I think a lot of times we've kind of come from the mindset of maybe the bar check method of having a million racks and all these little tubs everywhere, and with that kind of a setup, you have to have a pretty stable. You don't have much variation, right? You're setting everything on a thermostat. You don't have lights coming on and off. You don't have much of a swing in your temperatures, because your whole room is probably heated up by those all the heat tape or heat cable that you've got in all those racks. And so you're just shooting for as stable as you can get. And so they have the proportional thermostats to keep everything at a certain level. And so I think as we've hopefully kind of come out of that a little bit, where we're trying to give larger enclosures and give more choices and things like that, I kind of like that, but again, it's very difficult to do that in a box, because we talk about arboreal enclosures, and I've never seen an enclosure that's more than 10 feet tall, that wasn't in a zoo, in somebody's house. I did see one in a guy in Australia's house. He had his whole basement, there was a tree coming up all the length of the basement. It went into his coffee table in his living room or something, and so you could look down through the glass of the coffee table and see down into at the top of this tree. It was pretty cool.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah. Dave Kaufman made a video about his place.
That's right. Yeah, it was pretty cool. He was pretty ingenious with his little.
What was that guy's name? Something jungle.
It's like camo.
Camo. Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah. I was there in 2010, visiting there.
Is it a zoo? Do you have to pay a fee?
No, it's his house.
It's his house.
It's
a zoo, but it's his house.
Yeah. I don't know if he usually takes people into his house or not, but I was with a mutual friend, and so I got to go into the house and see all that stuff. But he does have kind of a building out back, so he may do tours or birthday parties or things like that out back. But for the most part, So aside from that, when people say I have an arboreal enclosure, they usually mean it's like 3 foot tall and 2 feet wide, and it's like I have never seen a tree that that would fit into that enclosure.
Yeah, the box is a little taller than it is wider.
Exactly.
That's what they mean. Yeah.
Yeah. But I always thought that would be so. And I think I'm looking at some of the videos that Ari and Ryu are putting up about the new Reptilandia in Texas. I'm really excited to check that out. And they have those tall enclosures with giant trees in them and stuff. So that's going to be pretty sweet. So I'm curious to see how they do in there.
Yeah, all of those enclosures, the Bolin's python enclosure, I was like, wow, this is probably, if I, going to see those enclosures or those exhibits, it's probably the closest I'd ever get to actual Papua. So
yeah, a lot safer too.
Yeah. No kidding.
I'd get make it in and out.
Yeah, but I always thought that would be really fun to have like a 2-story enclosure where you had like a spiral staircase that went around like a tree, and you had a bunch of green tree pythons in there, and you could kind of follow them and see where they laid their eggs or whatever. But even that's limited to 1 or 2 trees. You don't have a forest for them, or and reading their natural history studies, that they talk about how they move 50 feet from to set up in an ambush position. They go up and down the tree every day and night, so unless they catch something, then they kind of sit up and digest. But and
then these last crazy. 5 or 6 years of me keeping snakes, I've started to think like that snakes as species are like really varied, and they're really good at changing when they need to and adapting. But it seems like as individuals, they're not good at it at all. When you hear about like snakes being relocated not very far from where they were, and just suffering and dying because they don't know those special Rick Shine was talking about in his book how the water pythons, you could go to a certain clump of grass and know that a certain snake would be under that grass at a certain time of day because that was that snake's clump of grass. And he said that even after the area had flooded and all the scent trails had been wiped away, the next year after it had dried, he could find that snake in that same clump of grass. Wow. Because that was the niche. It was its own personalized niche that snake knew. So when you think about the life history of a snake, it hatches out, and say it's a green tree python, and there's a couple different types. There's the brave ones that eat, or there's the ones that just tuck their head and hide. And so I always think that those brave ones are probably the ones that have like a 50-50 chance, because either they're going to catch the food right away and start growing, or something's going to catch it right away.
Yeah.
And then the ones that hide, it seems like they just like want to find a hiding spot, and then if they get lucky, something will happen to walk by. So maybe it depends on if that year the skinks just had a bumper crop and there was just skinks everywhere, those little chicken babies. Maybe you would have a better chance.
Yeah. Or picking the right place. Like, again, in the Shine book, he was talking about the snakes that pick those perfect rocks, the broad-headed snakes, and then the geckos would tend to come under those rocks, and when they're a little cooler, the snakes have been kind of facultatively thermoregulating and moving their bodies up and down to kind of retain heat, so they were alert and ready for a kind of a cold, dumb gecko to wander into their rock, crevice or whatever. So picking the right hiding spot could be very effective as well, or setting up the right ambush site for a baby green tree or something could be the difference between life or death, Yeah.
It's kind of like when they talk about the rhythm of the room, that's what it is. The rhythm of the room is that snake's little clump of grass, or its favorite ambush or its favorite water hole where it always finds really fat rats to eat because the rats go to that water hole, or that's the rhythm of that snake's life.
I think the other part is that humans who relocate snakes aren't making good decisions for where that snake needs to go, and they relocate it to, a subprime area where the conditions are such that the snake just can't find what it needs, and it doesn't do well.
Well, and there's a reason that carpets do really well in human disturbed areas, because there's lots of rodents and there's lots of roofs, with warm temperatures to hide out in, and pretty undisturbed with rodents crawling through every once in a while.
Well, and I would say that carpets are more of a generalist species. Rather than and so it's there's again it's nuanced, because you're talking about very a difference in a very specialized species versus a very generalized species, and you definitely get like some of the snakes that that Mark O'Shea was talking about in his book, who are just like frog eaters, or like very specialized, versus
you move them and away from where their prey is, and they're done. The broadheaded snakes, if a tree grew up and shaded the rock, they wouldn't go in that rock anymore. It had to have access to sun at the right time. And they showed that by cutting away some of the limbs and letting the sun back in, they could bring the snakes back to those sites. And that became a used habitat for them. They made up fake rock sites so they could... Wasn't that cool?
They were actually able to make fake rocks, and it worked.
And they had like a little seal that they put so it would retain the moisture to the appropriate level and things. So pretty cool stuff. So we there's a lot we don't know about what these snakes are doing, but the things we do know kind of point to, I guess, both our sides. They do need a varied temperature, but they also need to have a specific temperature to do different jobs. And so
I think it's hard. I think it's hard when I think it's hard when any animal has to. I don't think people do very well in a chaotic society, right? Where they can't. They're like, the economy sucks and gas is crazy, and I don't know how to make decisions right now, and this is stressing me out. In much in the same way, I think when environmental factors go real crazy, animals have a hard time. Like, okay, where am I at? What's going on? Like, what am I doing here? And it makes sense. Like, you move a snake in a room, like all your carpets took the year off after you moved, Justin. Like, probably in direct response to like, whoa, what's happening here? So
this is.
it makes sense. It makes a lot of sense.
8 years or whatever. It's pretty crazy. Any other burning topics?
I think that maybe this is not really. It's more of a question than a point or whatever. Is so as we're trying to breed these snakes, and you have sensitive snakes like the Traceae. And we're trying to make it so that they're easier to keep in captivity, right? Like, we don't want to breed snakes and then have the babies end up dying because they're still so sensitive. I was wondering if when we're keeping them, maybe if we're exposing them to a little bit of higher or lower temps, kind of making them a little uncomfortable as they're growing when we're keeping them before we sell them or give them away. I wonder if that would make them a little stronger so that when they do go to their new home, they'll be ready for more. Do you know what am I making sense?
Yeah. I get what you're saying. I think, I've thought about that a bit, because it seems like when you get, I think juvenile animals are a little more adaptable anyway. If you usually if you get an adult into your collection, they don't acclimate as well as, say a baby. You get a baby and it eats the next day, and it's fine. But sometimes it messes up an adult, and they are stressed out and freaked out because they got moved, and they kind of know, wait, this is bad. But when a baby's born, it's looking to kind of move and find its own place and get out and find a food source and things like that. Everything's kind of new, so it's not, maybe it doesn't have those expectations of, no, my keeper comes in every Wednesday and gives me a rat. Like they're a little more adaptable because they don't necessarily have a rhythm, or they don't know what to expect. Maybe, I don't know. That's kind of what came to my mind with that question.
Yeah,
that's a good question though. I like that.
Yeah, what made me think about it is that is it the golden spoon or when Shine was talking about how the water pythons are so adaptive that when there's a bumper crop for the rats, the snakes can go from being just a smaller snake that stores fat and lays small clutches to being a humongous snake that just grows to gigantuan sizes and lays huge clutches, and the babies come out trying to eat big food right away. And I was wondering if you expose the babies to certain types of temperatures, if you'd get something, if they would be adaptable that way too. But I mean, I don't know, and it's hard to test because
that seemed to correlate with good feeding. So I think if you're, I don't know if you can overfeed a juvenile python if you're keeping it at proper temperatures. They're designed to kind of grow quickly. At least the Australian pythons, I don't, that I have experience with. You can feed them a couple times a week, and they'll grow fast and long. But once they hit adulthood, then they can start getting obese. But like if they've got the proper temperatures to digest, you can feed them up pretty easily. And I think that corresponds with what Shine was observing, that during when pythons hatched during bumper crop years, they did a lot better overall, over their lifespan. They laid more eggs, they lived longer, all those they grew larger, all those things. It just depends on what year you're lucky enough to be born in, or unlucky enough to be born in. So I think
they
that was
the temperature and the bumper crops coincide with each other, is what you're saying.
Or at least
maybe
moisture, is if the conditions are good for the rodents and they're breeding very well, then that's going to be better for the snakes. I don't know that it seemed like maybe temperature plays a role in that, but also extreme temperatures can be very bad for snakes, and it can be
drought,
too warm and drought, and he was talking about some of his early studies were thwarted because it was a bad year and the snakes just weren't doing anything and they were dying off and things. And he's like, oh man, no wonder nobody studies snakes. This is hard. Australian snakes have it very rough. It's really hard to make it in the Australian outback and things like that. So it's tricky out there for a wild snake. And I think maybe that's part of it. They're used to that kind of being, I don't know, paranoid or stressed out. So they're ready, hey, anything changes and I could be dead. So I need to make sure that I head for cover if there's some kind of, and if I don't recognize the area, I'm just probably going to die out because I don't have the benefit of knowing where to go during extreme heat or cool or whatever.
I think that by nature they have to have plasticity, the to me in my head, and I don't, I'm not anybody to say this, but it doesn't make sense that the golden spoon hypothesis could only apply. You either are a feast or a famine snake. You get put into one club and that's the club you're in for the rest of your life. It should be able to go both directions, right? It would have to.
Yeah, potentially. That seems to make sense.
In that, he said that what happened to the snakes that grew really large is they really struggled during the time of drought and famine, and they weren't able to recover because it's kind of like how
that huge size.
Yeah. It reminds me of what goes on with the imbricata on that one island where the females struggle to get to that bigger size because there's no median size food. There's just the really small food and then the really large food. And if they don't,
eat
if
a
they
mouse
can't
or
make
a wallaby.
it over that, they can't make it over that hump. They could, not make it.
But in the ones that feasted during the famine, they created more offspring, which increased the likelihood that more of them would make it than the ones who maybe did a little bit better but produced way less offspring. So to me, it's all just reproductive strategy in action, right? Like,
totally.
and so looked at over over the long haul, probably is generally about a wash.
Both serve their purposes, and I think that's kind of what you were driving at there, Lisa, with the idea that exposing the babies to a diverse temperature or different experiences makes them maybe stronger to withstand hard times down the road if their keeper loses interest or something and they kind of have meager meals for a little while and then all of a sudden they're feeding them up again, those kind of things where that they can handle those changes a little better than, say, a pampered snake that just had a steady state temperature and all the food it wanted, and then all of a sudden times are lean and they die off because they can't handle those rough times. Maybe that kind of goes along with what you were thinking.
Well, I was thinking more, it's probably a stupid question anyways, because snakes you can't just make a snake be able to handle cold, like a python stay cold for a really long time without getting sick.
Yeah.
But
There's
kind
limits,
of what I was thinking is, because in the reproductive husbandry, the Blue Bible, Ross was talking about how when his white lips hatched out, they were prone to respiratory infections. So he was recommending keeping them really warm. And so I kind of kept mine pretty warm. And so sometimes I worry that if they're really used to always having really nice warm temperatures, when I send them out to someone else, maybe that would be setting them up for failure. But I mean, I haven't heard of any of them having any problems. So, but it was just an idea, thinking about the temperatures, and also that reading that book was just inspiring different thoughts.
Yeah.
And,
I think it's a very valid question, really important one to think of, because if we can be improving the offspring that we're sending out, that's a good thing, right?
I do think a lot of people pin respiratory infections to temperatures, and I'm not so sure that that's a very correct. I think that temperatures can exacerbate respiratory infections, but the root cause of respiratory infections is,
the pathogen,
pathogenic, yes, 100%,
or obstruction, or some kind of
so it's
disease state in the air.
I mean, I just think, like, if that was the case, if it was solely a thermal issue, then snakes would be kicking off left and right out in during the cold season out in nature. And to be quite frank, like I keep my snakes at a steady temperature. I keep snakes at varied temperatures, and I don't really see RIs in my collection. So does that mean that, like, I think that there's something else going on there? And when I used to keep more snakes when I was much newer of a keeper, and there for a while I did see RIs, and then I kept back on all the snakes that I keep, and now I keep them in very, all different types of, and I don't see RIs anymore. So to me, it's just like, I think RIs have other underlying causes that get exacerbated by temperature.
Yeah.
That's my 2 cents. Sorry.
All right. Well, any final thoughts, or you got got anything else, or you want to wrap it up? What do you think?
I mean, I feel good if you guys do. If we missed, I don't think we missed anything. We talked about eggs, babies, adults.
Yeah,
So.
I think it was a great discussion. I appreciate your preparedness and the good topics you brought. That was a really fun discussion. So, thanks.
Well, I'm no Casey Cannon.
Oh, Casey's fun. Yeah, he does a good job as well. But yeah, you that was great. Thank you for coming on. Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
It's been really nice talking to you guys.
Awesome.
I look up to both of you.
Oh, well, I look up to you as well.
Yeah, I was going to say I am not to be looked up to. That's for sure.
I haven't read Black White Lips, so
no shit.
You're one up on me there. So.
Yeah.
Oh, they're easy.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Tell that to Owen.
He's right around the corner. He's almost there.
Yeah, I hear he wasn't too happy about how much we talk about him on the podcast. he was a little upset about that. But yeah, he says he's always sometimes listening. So we better be. We'll pay homage to Owen one of these days.
But I did notice last night when they were talking about the Timors. His little name badge said Mac and Wookie on it.
Oh yeah.
That's pretty common these days. Yeah. He's taking that on. Yeah,
that's all right. We know you're out there Mac and spying.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on, and we'll thank the Podfather for letting us record this fun stuff, and appreciate the NPR network. Any good shows you guys have listened to lately? Obviously they're...
I haven't even been on my own show for crying out loud.
You're not listening to any shows? Yeah, they had a little crossover with Lucas over on Snakes and Stogies with
I
Justin
did
and
see.
Phil, so.
I did catch a little bit of Lucas.
Yeah,
Lucas's little baby face on there.
To it, but yeah, he did a good job from what I've heard so far.
Dang, Lucas and his red Ackies are dude, I'm just like, I don't need Ackies. I do need Ackies.
I'm excited for Lucas's research. He said he was doing thermal research
cool.
for the black-headed pythons.
Yeah.
He's analyzing the data that was collected by, I can't remember, he said her name, but I can't remember her name. But he's going to figure some stuff out.
Yeah,
he's going to make Daddy Loafman proud.
Dr. Bruton, yeah. She's amazing. Like, she's done some really cool research. I was lucky enough to be on a call with her, with Lucas and her and Nick, and I think Zach was on there as well. Yeah, it was really cool to call on it for us.
The fat lady has sung.
Yeah, your dog was pretty well behaved. Just a little whining, but what's your dog's name?
His name's Cal. He's a little cowboy.
What kind of dog is he? He's
a standard Schnauzer.
Okay,
so
cool.
They're known for being yappy and talkative.
Yep, I have a little Schnauzer mutt upstairs. I'm not sure. He's like Schnauzer, some kind of Schnauzer or terrier, some kind of terrier. I don't know. He's a cross of a couple different dogs, but he's a yappy little thing. But yeah, fun stuff.
That's their job.
Yep, that's right. They got to let us know that somebody's at the door that we're talking to. You know,
yelling out the window. My yard, my yard, my yard, my yard.
Yeah. Who are you talking to, Mom? Yeah. Who's on the computer?
Exactly. All right. Well, check out NPR and all their stuff, all their socials. Great stuff, great content, and we will catch you again next week for another episode of Reptile Fight Club.
Facultative Fight Club is out.
Fight Club.